right. Welcome back to another episode of the Four Wide Podcast. As always, Jeremiah Stoddard, Jonathan Williams, and Dan Kiley. Got a good one for you. Hopefully, everybody had a very Merry Christmas and a good amount of time with their family, friends, all that kind of stuff over the past couple of days. And everybody feels rejuvenated and ready to go into the next year as all that. But with that, I know it's kind of interesting for people to be able to make sure they watch football and stuff. Some people get to watch it all day long. Some people don't necessarily get to watch as much during that as well because they're spending time with family and everything. But that's what we're here for. We're going to give you some recap on some different things. We're going to talk about some storylines for the most part today. We'll get into maybe a couple of games or stuff as well. But the storylines that are going across the NFL, biggest one, guys, that so far has come out this week is Nathaniel Hackett is now out as the Denver Broncos head coach after just 11 games. How many games did he act? Was he there all season? Or is it?
Yeah, he was there from the beginning.
Okay, so all season. So after all of we're in week 16 right now, and he just got fired. He's officially gone in his first season there. So they did not decide to give him the benefit of the doubt of going through this whole season. I guess they looked at it the same way that all of us did going into the season, saying, hey, that division is going to be good. They look like they're going to be a competitive team. They went out and got Russ. Let Russ cook. He burnt Christmas dinner. That's what I'm saying about Russ. And that's all you got to say about it.
But Russ couldn't cook ramen noodles right now, Stoddard.
It wasn't good. But how are we feeling about that? We'll get into Russ in a second because we'll kind of split this conversation up into two parts. Let's talk about Nathaniel Hackett first. How do we feel about getting rid of a head coach after just 16, 15 games, whatever it is at this point in his career?
Well, I think me personally, the way I see it, the fact that you're getting rid of your head coach now when the season's not even over, like you have 2 weeks left in the regular season, you're not holding on to him. I think that more so because look, you put in all your chips on getting Russell Wilson. The Denver Broncos did. You threw in a bunch of picks and stuff like that. Seattle took all of those picks away from you, and you basically said we're all in on Russell Wilson because he's going to be the guy that we believe will take us to being a contender. That didn't happen. But it's a lot easier at this point to probably point some blame at the head coach and take him out of the equation because you're probably going to be stuck with Russell Wilson, or not necessarily stuck with Russell Wilson, but you're still in that situation and you still have Russell Wilson on your roster. That's not an easy piece to just move away from. You can't just fire Russell Wilson like you can a head coach. And especially with everything that's going on the sidelines, players being unhappy, emotions flaring and everything like that. Typically what's going to happen in those situations is they're going to go after the head guy because he's the one that's supposed to have quality control over all of that, oversee everything. And so as of right now, I think that's just what they did. They went after the head coach. But again, I don't know why you wouldn't just wait till the season's over. Like, why at this point are you even bothering to find your head coach now? Because your season is what it is. You're eliminated.
Well, and if you go back to the preseason when the season first started, I was on that bandwagon of Russell's not a good quarterback. And you remember that, Jonathan, because you kind of laughed at me. You're like, but, I laid out my case, and he has proven me right. Listen, I'm not Nostradamus. I'm not always right. I am wrong a lot of times. But I'm just saying Russ, is not a great quarterback. And if anybody should be fired, it should be the general manager. Is John Elway still the general manager? Because they have not got a quarterback right since Peyton Manning. And they put all their chips in, just like you said, Jeremiah, in the setup for this. They put all their chips in on him. It is going to go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history. They gave up, I believe, 2 first-round picks and a 5th-round pick.
Do they even have any draft picks this year? I swear to God, they don't have any draft picks this year.
Yeah.
They
gave up
unloaded.
everything.
They unloaded, and they had a lot of pieces in place, and they didn't need – well, they needed a solid quarterback, and I guess they thought that Russell was the guy. But they are he's the scapegoat, guys. I mean, when you're 11 games into your career, they're not winning, and the reason they're not winning is because your quarterback is playing terrible football. And that's not the coach's fault that the quarterback is playing terrible football. It's the evaluator's fault who decided to bring him in. Now, behind the scenes, if this coach is the one who said, hey, guys.
Dan froze on us. Dan the man. But anyways, I'm going to interrupt him for a second since he just did that. But it's also you use him. Oh, Dan, you're back. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you. I'm sorry.
All right, go ahead. You froze for a second.
I don't know what happened. Yeah. So I'm saying, I don't know if he was behind the scenes, if he said, hey, listen, I want this job, but I want Russell Wilson. Now, if he did that, then he deserved to be fired. So I don't, like I said, none of us were privy to that conversation. I don't know whose decision it was, but whoever decided to give up the farm for Russell Wilson, that's the person who should have got the axe.
Yeah, and I'm just, but that's a lot of it too. That's not even just the head coach though. The head coach is definitely not the one saying, "Hey, I'm going to give up all of these draft picks in return for him." Head coach might be the one saying, "Hey, I would like to have this guy. If y'all can make something happen as far as like what the numbers look like to make us get him, then that would be great." But the front office did that. I mean, the front office at the end of the day signs off on that trade. They are the ones that are going to really throw in all of those picks and actually just completely unload their ability to recoup their team this year in the draft because they were the ones that had to sign off. So, yeah, they're not going to get fired for it. They never do in this situation, especially when it's the first year head coach. What do? You get rid of the first year head coach or the head coach that's there for the first time. I don't even know if he was a head coach prior or not, but either way, point being, he's going to be your scapegoat. I think it's completely unfair to get rid of a head coach after, not even fully through the season. Like you said, Jonathan, why could you not wait 2 more weeks? You're not going to be ahead of the game on the coaching search as far as like other NFL guys and stuff. Season's not over yet. I mean, I don't get it.
The only thing I could justify with that for going ahead and doing it now is because you're at least giving the perception to your fan base that you're trying to fix things and you realize that something wrong is going on and you don't want things to stay the same. And I know, shake your head at it. I would be too, because it's a load of bull is what it is.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
And I think also, while Russell Wilson has not been playing well, you're right in that sense, Dan, absolutely. It definitely doesn't help Russell Wilson's case too when you have his offensive lineman not wanting to stand up for him or anything like that, because the backup quarterback, can't remember his name right now, having a mind blank, goes over to the offensive line and says, "Hey, when Russell Wilson is knocked down, you guys need to go pick him up." And the offensive lineman basically say, give him a big old F you. How about you do something about it then? So even like your offensive linemen who are supposed to be protecting you, have your back, pick you up, make sure you're protected, stay all nice and pretty after the game. They're not even there standing up for Russell Wilson. No. They don't care about him. You've seen the wide receivers put their heads down and yell at the sidelines in frustrations over Russell Wilson. So when his own team isn't believing in him, there's a whole lot more pressure on that situation. When you're not winning, also, that's a lot more pressure that you're putting on yourself. So it's a tough situation for Russell Wilson. It's probably correlating to him not playing well. And it's just a whole dumpster fire in Denver right now, because now you need to find a new head coach. You really have to just wipe everything clean and try and get some good mojo going.
One of the things that I did here, and I don't the very difficult thing about today's news culture is you don't know what to believe and what not to believe, right? And, there was something that came out talking about that Russ has been kind of a diva at practice all year long, not really been like all about it. And he's more concerned about his image, his lifestyle with his wife, Sierra, or Rihanna, or whoever he's married to. Sierra, well, I mean, she fine. So, I mean, I get it.
You ain't wrong, but
I mean, I get it. But at the same time, like, if you're not committed, you're not committed. And that's one of the things about Tom Brady, right? Like, Tom Brady was overcommitted, and so his fine wife was like, "Okay, I'm out the door, and I'm gonna go hook up with my jiu-jitsu instructor, and there ain't nothing you can do about it."
Tom Brady catching strays in this episode, Jesus.
But and Russ sees that, is like, "Yo, I can't let that happen to my girl, so I gotta pay attention." Now, I mean, I get it, family dynamics, all that stuff. There's just a lot going on. I just think it was a cocktail for a disaster, and it just played out that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a disaster as a whole. I mean, like, he got benched too. Like, so maybe that plays into some of it. Like, I mean, because he also was like, all right, I'm going to bench the quarterback, and put Russell Wilson to the side and go with our backup late in this game or something like that. And then he gets fired afterwards. It kind of doesn't make sense as far as what the front office is trying to do with that, outside of just trying to cover their own ass. Like you said, Jonathan, they're trying to make the fan base think that they're like not happy with it to the point where they're going to try to do something, even if it's a little drastic. But here's the thing. Now you've got no draft picks. You have no head coach, and your team is complete trash. Okay. I mean, just absolute trash right now. You're sitting at 4-11 with 2 games left to play on the season. And you just gave up 51 points to the Rams. The Rams have been bad this year. The Rams are also 5-10. They are a bad football team this year. They don't have Matthew Stafford. I mean, you got the Broncos out here making Baker Mayfield look like Joe Montana or something and just absolutely going to town. And, I mean, just it's ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous to see what they're allowing at this point as an organization. I don't know what they do next. Like you said, is it still Elway that runs the team? I don't know. But if it is, they really need to figure some stuff out. I don't know what to tell you at that point. It's kind of crazy. But I think that's enough on that part. Let's real quick before we go on. Do you think that they try to trade Russ to try to recoup any type of draft picks or anything back on this year? They've got him for 2 years, and he's got a heavy contract.
I don't know who you could get to take that right now. I mean,
The contract's
if you
too
do,
big.
if you do get anything in return, it's going to be real bad. It's not going to be anything pretty like it was the first time for what Seattle got for him. I'll tell you that much. So I think honestly they'll probably stick it out for another year. You at least give them next year, the first couple of weeks or whatever, and you see how things go, because Russell Wilson at this point, whether you like him or not, has built a pretty sustainable career as an elite quarterback. He's put up good numbers. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. So you have to give that type of guy another chance. I've always said that the Broncos have a really talented roster, because they do. They have a lot of good playmakers on that team, and they should be a competitive football team. So maybe an entire offseason with one another, they kind of hash some things out, talk to one another, have some heart-on-hearts or whatever you got to do. Get the tissues out, cry some tears, vent your feelings. I don't know. Just get something figured out and see if you can get something actually cooking in the kitchen next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully they can. Like, this is funny from Robert. Heard the water is burning right now. Yeah, it's not good. Don't let Russ cook anymore this season, I don't think. I don't know what to
No.
tell you. Just ride out the next 2 games and see what you can figure out in the offseason. Maybe you can make something else happen. Don't really know too much what to tell you there. But let's go ahead and jump to the next topic real quick on this while we're waiting on Dan. Dan dropped out for a second. We'll see if we can find him back in a minute. Let's go ahead and talk about Tua today. Tua today, after losing yesterday, stayed in the game the whole game yesterday, right? Today, it comes out that the guy is back in concussion protocol. This is now the 3rd time this season he's in concussion protocol, and the first time he never should have been allowed to play right after that again. Then the second time he was out for like 2 weeks or something with it, and really probably shouldn't. I mean, he was okay right after that, but he absolutely has struggled, I think, since then for the most part. And then down again with the concussion. I mean, at this point, we're talking career issue type thing. I mean, this is
Oh,
serious,
absolutely.
like livelihood issue at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we said the first time it happened, when that whole issue came about where they put him back in the game, and it was clear as day that Tua did not need to be back in that football game. He didn't know where he was at. He did not look like a person that should be in a football game or really doing anything mobile at that time. Like, he did not look like someone that should be doing anything active. So we were talking about how the NFL and the organization needs to be taking care of Tua, because this is something that could affect his life, not only his career. Well, now you're talking about this could potentially affect someone's life. You said 3rd concussion in one season. This is not over like a 10-year career where someone has had to deal with 3 concussions. This is in one season. This is more than football at this point. And
Let's talk about it like this too. This is the 3rd time he's put in concussion protocol. Whether or not he's recovered from a concussion fully and gone back in, he might still be having the same freaking concussion the entire time. And they've just now had to put him back into the concussion protocol again, because like you said, he has to be protected from himself, because he is probably just, they go in, they answer questions and stuff to get through concussion protocol, and they can answer questions the way they know they need to be answered to make sure they get back on the field. At this point, he needs to be done for the season, man. 2 games left. Y'all are, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs yet or not. I mean, they're still a playoff team right now, I think, but you probably need to just sit him.
Yeah, there needs to be some serious conversations about what Tua's future in football looks like. I mean, some serious conversations, because it's more than, like I said, it's more than just his career. He's shown that he can be a good quarterback. When he finally got some weapons down with him in Miami, he got Jalen Waddle, and then he also got Tyreek Hill down there as well. So he's shown that he can be a good quarterback, despite him throwing 3 interceptions in the 4th quarter. But that might have had to do with him getting slammed on the ground on one play.
Yeah.
And he was still back out on the field. So, you just never know. You never know with those types of situations. You don't know what a player's having to deal with or what he's trying to play through. But yeah, some serious stuff for sure. And like I said, there just needs to be some serious conversations about, because all you really care about is that Tua does what is best for himself. And just from an outsider, I don't know Tua's situation. I don't know his mental toughness or whatever. I don't know what his body's capable of or anything like that. But what I do know is that he has had a history of injuries, and now he's having a history of having concussions, or at least being put in concussion protocol. And so this is a very serious topic now. It's not just something about the NFL's not doing him any justice by putting him out there. The concussion protocol needs to change or whatever. The Dolphins need to do something about it. This is something that Tua himself needs to take care of.
Absolutely something that Tua needs to take care of at this point. And right now, they did not win the division. Buffalo has won their division, so they're still fighting for that wild card spot right now. They're currently sitting as the 7th seed in the AFC at 8-7, so they can still make the playoffs. But at this point, you expect them to probably try to put him back out there in the next week or so and not shut him down for the season. But quite frankly, I think at this point they need to shut him down for the season because he could get himself killed out there. And that's not an exaggeration. At this point, you're talking about like the third time you're in concussion protocol in the same season. Honestly, we need to go away in this offseason, and there needs to be a full investigation of how the Dolphins as an organization has handled this, because it is an extremely dangerous thing for him to continue playing at this point, especially if they put him back in for these next 2 games and potential playoff matchups. Dan, welcome back.
Thanks, guys. Sorry, not a good tech night for me. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, you're talking about a man's livelihood is his job, right? But now we're in the range of like his life and quality of life as it goes on, and I think you said something that I agree with. Like, this may be repercussion or a continuation of his first concussion. Maybe he was never really actually healed all the way. I didn't watch the Dolphins game, so I don't know if he took a big shot. And the scary thing.
Well, so basically, I think it's Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter posted a clip of Tua rolled out to his right, and he flicked the ball to his drop off route or whatever you want to call it, and a defender gets him by his feet, and his head slams backwards onto the ground. So that's what they think happened and where it happened.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I would agree. Man, that's tough, man. I mean, because he was off to such a good season, and the Dolphins were playing really, really well. And that's tough. But listen, I mean, at the end of the day, and we say this when we talk about the college kids too, it's like you don't want to see anybody get hurt. Like, sometimes we joke around saying it'd be cool if this guy didn't play, but whatever. But like at the end of the day, nobody really wants to see anybody get hurt. And it's a scary situation for Tua. And more than anything else, I hope that he's able to find what's really happening and get healthy.
Well, let's go back to like whatever week it was, week 3 or whatever it was when he first started dealing with his concussion stuff. The first couple of weeks of the season, one thing that we said based on like what the doctors and things were saying publicly about it afterwards was, hey, after having that first concussion, other concussions come back easier. Like you can get a concussion easier at this point, like after the fact. And now whether or not it is the same concussion that just never fully recovered at this point, or if he's just had repeat occurrences because he's more likely to get one and he's still getting slammed to the ground and his head hitting pretty hard. Every time it happens, something like that has happened, where you see his head go down pretty aggressively. But hopefully he figures it out. I really hope the Dolphins do what's best for him at this point. And that's the part that worries me about this, guys, is I would almost bet money that he'll be on the field again next week, because they are, once again, like I just said, though, they've got 2 games left. They're still in playoff contention, and they play the Patriots and the Jets next. That's their next 2 games.
I'll tell you this right now, Stoddard, which I already know the answer to this. It's really not even a question, but I already know the answer to this. If Tua or the Miami Dolphins were to come out and say that Tua is going to play next weekend, he's going to play this next week after being in concussion protocol for the 3rd time in a season, and the NFL did not step in and reject that request and say Tua is not allowed to play, then that just goes to show that the NFL does not give a single crap about any of these players.
The players union needs to step up and do something about it at this point. Somebody on that needs to step up and say, hey, this dude's going to get himself killed.
That's not right.
If y'all don't do something on his behalf. Like, it's not good.
I think at the end of the day, we know that there's 0 F's given by the owner. It's a money-making product, and that's not fair, because I know that there are some owners that truly do care about their people, but there are owners.
But at the end of the day, it is a business. It's still a business for them, and they're running a business. So when they look at these guys, they look at them as employees. They don't necessarily look at them as people in the same sense that you and I would look at them as people, because to them, they are employees that make them money. The other thing to think about too is Tua's obviously in his first contract, because he hadn't been in the league long enough to have a new contract. So they're not paying him a ton of money. In their mind, they probably could look at it as like, well, if something happens and he can't play anymore, we're not out that much. We can just go draft another quarterback and we'll be okay. As bad as that sounds, that's kind of the position they're in, since he doesn't have a Russell Wilson type contract or an Aaron Rodgers type contract, or, you know what I mean? Like he's not on the hook for a lot of money. And so they really probably don't care too much about him. Most of the time, you got to think about these guys. They're probably trying to protect their franchise quarterback. And after dealing with this many concussions in the same season, they're probably looking at him in a different light, saying he's probably not a franchise quarterback for us anymore, because he might not be able to play football that much longer. So they're not going to look at the longevity of his career as much as they should anymore. At least that's a possibility. I can't necessarily speak that as a fact because they may, go completely against that, but it looks bad. If they let him play next week, it looks really, really bad on the organization. And I think that, like I said earlier, there needs to be a full investigation into what the crap they are doing as far as protecting these players in this concussion protocol. There needs to be a absolute butt lashing for this behavior. It's ridiculous. Sorry, I'm trying not to say bad words on the air here. But that's we'll see how that plays out. We not too long before games start getting played. It's Monday night. We're doing this show a little bit late because of Christmas once again. And if y'all are all here, make sure y'all pay attention or stay tuned afterwards. We're gonna jump off the show probably around 8 or so like that, and then Brooks is going live or posting a video on his network also at around 8:30 I think tonight. So if you're looking for Brooks, you'll find him at 8:30. But stick around with us as we continue to talk about NFL football as well. Last topic I know that we wanted to talk about for sure, outside of just some of the games specifically, is we got to talk about the Jets and what is going on with Zach Wilson, right? Jonathan, you and I were talking earlier as well as Dan before the show came on, and I mean, they've got the guy listed as the third string quarterback again, and he's going to be inactive. They're not even going to have him dressed out. So so you got Joe Flacco as the backup quarterback this week. You got Mike White starting again. I mean, what's going on? What's going on?
Look, so I know that you said that they have supposedly came out and said that Zach Wilson is still in their plans for the future. And
yeah, let me read that quote real quick. The quote from the head coach himself is, Zach Wilson still has a huge plan in our future. We're not quitting on the young man. That's exactly what the coach said.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to call him out on his bluff right there. I think I'm going to do that because let's go back like 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, and Mike White was named the starting quarterback. And so Mike White comes in, he throws for 300-plus yards. He absolutely lights it up. They end up losing still, but looked a lot better than what Zach Wilson was putting out there. What happens the next week? Well, teams or players on that team start repping Mike White shirts. And I told you, I said, that's a sign of a team that has bought into what Mike White is doing. And they didn't show that, they didn't reciprocate that for Zach Wilson. So this team appears to kind of be more attracted to what Mike White is doing, is bringing to this team and whatnot. Well, then Zach Wilson the only reason Zach Wilson got another shot this season is because Mike White was could no longer be an option because he got hurt. So then you forced your hand again, and you have to put Zach Wilson out. You're like, let's see, maybe a couple weeks out of the job, maybe he gets things right, got out of his head a little bit, and he can play better. No, nothing changes, nothing at all. It's still the same old Zach Wilson that you've gotten in New York this entire year. And so for you now to not only give Mike White the job back, but you don't even make him a second string quarterback, and you make him on the inactive list, basically saying we're shutting him down for the rest of the year. Joe Flacco is going to be our backup quarterback. Now, I get it. I'm not behind closed doors. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's a similar situation, like I said, with Denver, where maybe people just need to kind of hash it out a little bit, get their feelings out there, and have some heart-to-heart conversations about what Zach Wilson is doing, being a distraction or whatever, like whatever they're not gelling with. Maybe they just need to have a conversation about that. And maybe that's why they're saying he's still in our future. We just got to have the whole offseason talk things out. But in my opinion, all of those signs point to me saying that Zach Wilson is not a part of the Jets' future right now, because the only reason that he was even given a second shot, and probably wouldn't have, it was because Mike White got hurt. And if Mike White hadn't gotten hurt, who's to say that Wilson would have ever even gotten another shot this season?
Well, and more importantly, those games that Mike White started, Zach Wilson was listed as inactive. He wasn't dressed out for those games either. Like you said, the only reason they brought him back is because Mike White got hit by a freight train and his entire rib cage collapsed. I don't know how he's healthy enough to come back right now, because I can promise you I've broken my ribs before. And that does not go away very quick. And you can't do anything with broken. You can't breathe with broken ribs. It hurts so bad. But Mike White took over that locker room so easily. And when it's that easy, that tells you everything you need to know about the guy that was starting. We know that when Jake Fromm took the locker room from Jake Eason, it's because it was easy. And the guys were looking for somebody to turn to, and that's what happened. Which, broke my heart at the time, but I'm over it. But, I mean, that's and there were so many red flags about Zach Wilson coming out of BYU, which, leads me to the thing. And, we were joking a couple of weeks ago, like somebody else said it, and I said that I could do it too. And I think you guys could do it as well, is if you let us draft a one Falcons draft, we could do it, and we could do it better than what they've been doing recently because it's not that freaking hard. Like they now, if we started scratch and we didn't know anybody, it would be extremely difficult. But there are so many tools and ways for us to learn about these people nowadays that I don't understand how we keep making mistakes. Like in so many of these GMs have to prove that they're so much smarter than everybody else. And that's the Zach Wilson thing. Like he had one play at BYU where he's running, to his left, and he throws to a receiver running a cutting route out, almost like a flag route to the right, and throws across his body, across the field, hits that throw, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's the greatest throw I've ever seen." Admittedly, yes, that was an amazing throw, but that's why we're going to draft the guy that high because he made one freaking throw.
And then he did the same thing at his pro day, and everybody's like, "Yeah, it's locked up."
He threw that ball like 70 yards on his pro day or whatever it was. Like he bombed one, and everyone's like, "Yep, there it is."
I'm gonna go ahead and get this in here while we're on the topic right now. They're doing the same thing with Will Levis right now because if you notice,
100%.
Anytime people want to show you what makes Will Levis so good, it's him throwing in one of those practice domes. He's throwing on air. He's getting in reps with a trainer or whatever. It's not throws in actual game. And people say, "Oh, well, look at the film. Look at him here. Look at his arm. Look how easy he makes it look."
Well, yeah, brother.
Yeah, it should be easy in practice. If you're that good, if you're a college quarterback, it should look easy in practice. But show me anything in a game that he's done. And so what's happening now is that these pro days and what you see on videos or what you see on TikToks or what you see on social media that goes viral, that's what's attracting people all of a sudden. And I don't know that's specifically what is attracting these GMs to him, but it sure feels like that because it seems like that's what happened with Zach Wilson because it never really seemed like he did that much anything too amazing at BYU. And Will Levis hasn't done anything amazing in college, but yet there's still people out there that are saying that he could be the second quarterback drafted.
Well, more importantly than that is you didn't hear anybody at BYU clamoring for him, right? You didn't hear anybody like, "Oh my God, he's got to be the number one quarterback. He's this, that, and the other." Like, I know that Stetson Bennett has been a hot button issue at Georgia for a long time. But the one thing that has always come out of that locker room is they wanted him. That's who everybody wanted. You never
won
heard
that locker room for sure.
You never heard anybody come out and say, "Why the hell isn't Carson Beck playing?" Like nobody's ever done that. Now maybe that's because Kirby is like, "I will kill you if you do it."
That would be the case, though.
Yes.
If a player came out publicly calling for the backup quarterback,
yeah,
I mean, good Lord.
But my point is, at no point has there ever been a single comment that came out of that locker room about that. So if you extrapolate that to the Zach Wilson situation, you've never heard anybody coming out supporting him saying, "Hey, listen, he's in a rough patch right now, but we believe in the guy." That's never come out. And he may have more talent than Stetson Bennett, but I guarantee it, if you took Stetson out right now at Georgia and put him out there with the New York Jets locker room, it wouldn't be worse. It would not be worse.
No, I really don't think it would either because I really don't think Zach Wilson is like right now, he's not an NFL quarterback. You couldn't put him on a single team in the NFL, in my opinion, and him have sustained success. And I'm not saying just he wouldn't have like a good game or two. He would have a good game or two because he is a decent quarterback. He would still have a good game or two
Chiefs,
where he would throw for, but he still is going to look rough overall.
Andy Reid is an amazing quarterback coach, and he's done wonders. Look, Alex Smith was an absolute bomb, and he got him, and he went to the AFC Championship game not once.
Well, to be fair about Alex Smith was still playing well after he went to the Commanders, which was the Redskins at the time, until he completely
after he had his entire leg snapped.
Right,
tore his leg up.
But he came from San Francisco where he was hot and cold, right? I'm not trying to shit on Alex Smith. I'm just saying he's hot and cold. But after spending time with Andy Reid, he became a much better quarterback. So I'm just saying. But
I mean, there's a possibility. I'm not saying he can't succeed ever or at all, but I'm just the likelihood and the odds.
I don't think he gives a crap, Jeremiah. I don't think Zach Wilson gives a crap.
Make your money and go.
Yeah. So whatever. I think that's the point.
I think that's the point too. But anyways, because we just talked about quarterback situations and everything across the league, we got to at least mention something about Falcons. Let's give it just a couple minutes here, and then let's make our Monday Night Football picks, and we'll get out the way for Brooks here afterwards. So Falcons lose yet again to Baltimore, and they still don't even have Lamar Jackson. You're within 8 points of the game. From what everybody's talked about and what we saw, there were some questionable calls by the refs in those games that didn't help the Falcons. But, it still. Well, you're still only scoring 9 points in the game. You're not playing well. Ritter hasn't looked great. It's kind of what I expected to see when Ritter took over. I didn't expect to see a change or like a spark. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give Ritter the benefit of the doubt for the situation that he's in and for him being a rookie quarterback. I'll say that he's shown some promising things, and the fact that he doesn't have Kyle Pitts and he based his only target that he can really throw to right now is Drake London. Him and Drake London obviously have a special connection already, and that's very promising for the Falcons. So that's good to build off of right now. If you don't want to take anybody in the draft, that's fine because you can at least continue forward with that. And I think Desmond Ritter has shown some good things. And I think if you give him a full offseason as the number one quarterback, maybe things would look a little bit different for Atlanta and for Desmond Ritter. But the good thing is now you don't have to worry about the playoffs anymore. It's weird to say that you don't have to worry about the playoffs anymore. But I say that it's good news because now you have the number 6 pick in the draft. And you desperately need another big-time key contributor on defense. I've always said they're just a couple pieces away, man. You got a lot of money you can spend this next offseason, and if you can nail your first-round pick, you're going to be a top 10 pick more than likely, then things could really be on the up and coming for Atlanta. And so, honestly, that's probably a good spot to be for Atlanta.
They're at 6 right now, and they still got to play against the Cardinals and then the Buccaneers. They could go down a little bit on that list as well to maybe in the top 5 potentially.
That would be huge. And if you could if there's any, well, they won't take a Georgia player, so it doesn't matter. But if they could get somebody like Will Anderson and Jalen Carter and put in next to Grady Jarrett, first of all, Grady Jarrett is getting salty for the first time in his career. He's starting to be real negative. And
something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I hope Grady doesn't want to get out of here. And here, honestly, guys, and I love Grady Jarrett. If he wanted out of town, I'd help him because he deserves it. He's given us everything he's got. But
how much that U-Haul cost, Grady? We'll get it there for you.
Listen, I think that guy's given everything he can. I can't blame anything.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, for sure. So we'll see what happens with that.
Can I give a couple quick hitters real quick before we get out of here?
Yeah, go ahead, real quick.
Right.
Get him. You get 60 seconds, Stan.
All right, Tom Brady does it again. Rams, holy crap, they came out of nowhere. Baker Mayfield, baby saved his career. The Packers are not dead. The Steelers, the Cowboys, what a win over the Eagles. That's a really big win for them. 49ers, Brock Purdy, been incredible. Brock Purdy, been incredible. The Texans beat the Titans. We've been talking about the Texans the last couple of weeks. They've been playing really, really well. I know they've lost a lot of games. They've come alive. The 49ers, like I said, with Brock Purdy, really, really excited about that group. The Lions, holy crap. They laid an egg for the first time in a while. Bengals, good. Vikings, sneaky 12-3. But Jonathan says they're going to flame out. And
watch out for
it's the running game. If they get the running game going, whatever. Chiefs 12-3, sew that thing up. Saints are not dead. Browns, what a disappointment. Bills, great. Bears, not so great. And that's it.
Look at Dan.
All right.
Oh, that deserves an applause. I'll give you that one, Dan. Look at you.
There you go. Run through it, my man. Run through it. All right. Monday Night Football kicks off in about 12 minutes. So let's go ahead and look at that. You get the Chargers at the Colts. What a game, guys. What a Monday Night Football game after Christmas right there. Wow.
I wonder who everybody's going to pick for this one. It baffles me, but I'll go ahead and get it started. It's Los Angeles. I'm going to take the Los Angeles Chargers. I'll rock with my boy Herbert. I'm still a fan of Herbert. I like him a lot. I think that it's weird that the Chargers have not been as good as I thought they would be because they have a really good roster on paper. You look at it, there's a lot of good weapons over there. Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert. You go down the list, they got some dudes over there. They just really haven't put it all together. I think defensively, specifically, they haven't really figured that out. But also rock with the Chargers. Indianapolis is just in a horrible spot right now. They just really have no clue what's going on, and they're just on the downfall as the season winds down.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go Chargers here, right? Justin Herbert, sneaky over 4,000 yards, and he does not have great receivers. I mean, he's got good ones. He doesn't have trash, but he doesn't have great receivers. To put up 4,000 yards, that's pretty freaking impressive. Austin Eckler has quietly become one of my favorite running backs, and I'm not going to be fooled again by the Colts. I was trying to ride with them. I just can't do it. I wish them luck, and it's only a 3.5 line, but it's going to be the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm going to say I was sitting here the whole time y'all were talking going, you know what, I'm going to take the Colts, but I still just can't. I was going to, and I really just can't. So 3.5-point spread. The Colts are the home team, but I was looking at it too, and I was thinking maybe we get to see a good game out of Jonathan Taylor. We don't have the best, rushing defense in LA, but you also still you don't have a great rushing offense with the Colts, and I don't think Matt Ryan has the ability to carry this team to a victory this week, unfortunately. So I'm going to agree with you guys and say we got the Chargers winning tonight. And yes, Dan, I saw this as well. Let's go ahead and put this up, and this is what we wrap it up as. Zach, we appreciate it as well. Chances Correa actually signs with the Mets.
I think it's good. I don't know what happened with the Giants situation. I mean, they went public with it, that it was a massive deal. And then he signed, I want to say it was like $350 million. Was that right?
It was huge. Yeah.
Giants?
It was something.
And then the one with the Mets is 313. But it was supposedly a dream come true for him to play for the Mets. So we'll see, but I think it's actually really high, Zach. We appreciate the donation too. Thank you so much.
I think it's interesting that the Mets come in and steal him like in the middle of the night. It was like I woke up to a notification at like 6:30 in the morning and it says, "Oh, Correa signed with the Mets." I was like, "What the heck?" So I looked into it, whatever, and yeah, he signs with the Mets after it looked like he was going to the Giants. So I hope nobody's parents bought them a Giants Correa jersey for Christmas. I really don't.
Ooh.
So,
well, hopefully they got it from FanDuel. One year guaranteed.
But what's interesting is that someone came out and said, because now the Mets are having the same issues that the Giants did with his physical, saying that things don't look right and they're having some issues with signing things. But what's holding the Mets back now is that they made it public. Like their owner came out and talked about signing Correa to this massive deal, how he wants to spend his money and whatnot. And that's going to restrict them possibly from releasing them or releasing this contract of him, because Manfred has verbally said, you guys need to be careful about making these deals public before everything processes through, or else things can get real tricky for you. So now the Mets are having to deal with that. I think he still ends up in New York, but it might be for like 2 years and they're going to end up paying him $30 million.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. But with that as well, we're going to wrap up the episode this week. But we will be talking about, in MLB as well here in the next couple of weeks and stuff as the NFL season comes to a close. We are going to broaden our horizon for what we talk about. We will talk about the NBA as well. But so we will branch out from what we talk about after the NFL season comes to a close or as it starts to wrap up here. So we'll get more into stuff like that. Thank you guys for watching, and make sure y'all tune in to Brooks at 8:30 here shortly. MK, I see your comment. Merry Christmas to you as well. Happy New Year, everybody. We will see you guys next week.
Peace.